The Biden administration should be one giant parody account, but alas, it is not. From the VP of school buses and selfies to the suitcase-jacking former nuclear waste official Sam Brinton to Secretary Binder and chest-feeding Pete. They really employ a diverse team of morons over there at Camp Brandon. And that circus roster also includes Education Secretary Miguel Cardona, who, despite overseeing education in America, cannot get a simple yet iconic quote correct. Listen.
We're going to set up follow-up calls with every governor we met with to make sure we're available. As I think it was President Reagan said, we're from the government. We're here to help.
So I don't need to tell you all this because unlike Miguel, I think you know, but for kicks and giggles, let me remind you that the actual line spoken by our great former president, Ronald Reagan, actually goes like this.
I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yes, indeed, President Reagan. The government responsible for locking us down for months or even years on end due to a glorified cold. The government who masked and force-vaxxed children and adults alike is not a comforting thought, Miguel. And neither is the fact that our education secretary is a moron. But speaking of morons and misspeaking, I wish I could say our illustrious president was just attempting a joke here, but alas, who really freaking knows anymore? Play it.
This is Nick. Hey, Nick. This is Nick Lahren. Now look, my Marine carries that. It has a code to blow up the world. That doesn't. This is not nuclear weapons, is it? All right. Okay.
The world is on edge and could possibly be on the brink of World War III, and our president, God help us, is cracking a joke about blowing up the world. Comforting. But hey, he's from the government and he's here to help. But while Joe may blow up the world, one thing he will not do is acknowledge his 7th grandchild, Hunter's love child, Navy. After receiving well-deserved heat from leaving out their 7th grandchild from the stocking display last Christmas, family Biden decided to skirt the entire issue this year, not by just including her, but by eliminating the stocking display altogether. It wasn't until about 6 months ago that Joe was forced to recognize her existence, not because he wanted to, but because the optics were noticeably bad. But that acknowledgement was short-lived and a one-time only type deal. Jill says her decorations represent magic, wonder, and joy, but apparently that doesn't extend to her granddaughter. Perhaps that bad karma is why, like our president, the tree outside of the White House fell down. I couldn't think of a more Biden thing to happen, really. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization, which is led by a Chinese Communist Party official, will release a plan next month that calls on the world's most developed nations to fight climate change by curbing their excessive appetite for meat. Will that directive apply to China? Well, likely not, because China is still deemed a developing country. Once again, the communists use environmental policy and the manipulation of stupid leftists in America to further their own agenda. My next guest is not only a 4th-generation dairy farmer, but also one of the foremost advocates for American farmers and ranchers, and I can't wait to hear what she thinks of this one. Stephanie Nash joins me now. So I know you're going to be fired up about this. Not that anybody really cares what the UN says, not that you and I care, and I don't think most Americans care, but this whole initiative to get people to eat less meat because of climate change, this isn't just a UN thing. I mean, this is an initiative that goes far beyond that, and I'm worried that this is going to catch on. But what do you say to the UN that says that rich countries should stop eating meat to save the planet?
Well, first of all, the United States is not known for taking orders from other countries, let alone on agriculture, because not only are we leading in a lot of products that we are exporting to other countries, but we are also more sustainable than other countries. You look at not only the UN, but Singapore, they're exporting up to 90%. And so all of these rich countries that are getting into fake meat, it makes sense for them if they want to adopt that, but it's something that the United States should not adopt, nor should it be something that family farmers and ranchers should stay quiet on.
Right. Well, this whole concept, though, of being vegan or eating fake meat to save the environment, or that somehow livestock, they emit so much methane that it's killing the ozone. I mean, that to me is such a stretch of the imagination. But there are a lot of people that are the environmentally crazed folks that really do believe and they buy into that narrative that somehow eating meat, livestock, farming, ranching is killing the environment. What do you tell those people?
Unfortunately, media and marketing from these alternative products and the fake meat push to be vegan has been stronger in the last 10 years. You know, we're so far removed from the farm nowadays. There's more housing developments going up, the new farmers and ranchers coming in. There's more agendas for climate change friendly practices, and people don't really understand the push that we have been doing for sustainability, for environmentally friendly here in the United States. You know, we're 1.4%. We're the lowest of any country in agriculture for emissions. We're doing a very good job, but for the vegan, vegetarian lifestyle of, you know, we don't want to slaughter the animals, or we don't want to, eat cows from a farm. That's a big push right now. And I think people need to realize, you know, what we are doing as family farmers and ranchers is bigger for our food supply, for our future, than the fake meat will ever be.
In the industry of farming and ranching, I know that you know this personally. I know this personally. My uncle still runs a family ranch in South Dakota. So this is something that hits home for me, and I know it hits home for you. But this push, this environmental push, the vegan push, whatever the push is, I think it also, beyond just impacting the bottom line, mentally, I think it's impacting our farmers and ranchers. I think just like our law enforcement officers, our military members, America's farmers and ranchers, they feel like they're being unfairly demonized. And unfortunately, the suicide rates for people in this industry, not just because of financial, but because they just feel not appreciated and not supported, it's a problem. Can you speak to that in some of the conversations that you've had in this industry?
Yeah, so this is really close to my heart because in the last 2 years, agriculture has become the #1 industry for mental illness. Farmers are not only losing their generational farms, but they're having to fight against, you know, topics like fake meat or climate change, or having to get into regulatory programs under the USDA or their state to adopt this. It's giving them no choice. So a lot of farmers are feeling hopeless. They are not financially sustainable. They are fighting against consumer perception. And so it's really sad to see our industry not only fight against mental illness, but fight against people that could be helping them in a way, supporting agriculture, not supporting other products or this agenda to kill off agriculture.
What do you think our country would look like if we didn't have American producers? What would that mean, not just for the farmers and ranchers themselves, but for the rest of the country? Because I don't think that they understand what that void would look like.
So there's a lot going on in our country with agriculture, and I don't think the American people really do value the importance of what we grow here in the United States. There are many countries around the world that are dependent on us, and a couple of other countries that are very strong in whether it's fruits and nuts or dairy products. I mean, we still produce all of the milk that Americans drink every day. That's pretty great for a country to do that. And so if we were to get rid of agriculture and the family farmers that are still fighting for a fair food security, it would be detrimental. You would see exports increasing even more than they are today because of the big corporations that are trying to make a cheap buck off the American people. You would see more land being taken up by China and other countries investing into our food because they are not sustainable in their countries, and they're looking for more opportunity. And ultimately, Americans would see a higher increase at the grocery store. You think it's high now, wait until we're making fake meat coming from Singapore into the United States. So there's a couple of trends that could happen that could be detrimental to the American food supply.
I want to talk about this as well, because Americans, as you mentioned, going to the grocery store, everything's expensive. Eggs are expensive, milk's expensive, meat's expensive, you name it, it's expensive. There are a lot of Americans out there that see those price tags and they think farmers and ranchers are getting rich. They're making all this money, the prices are so inflated, somebody's got to be taking home a gray bag to the bank because everything's so expensive. I know that's not the case, but can you help educate my viewers that feel like maybe they're getting ripped off and somebody in the family farm or ranch is benefiting off of that?
So I tell people this all the time, you know, the Amazons and Walmarts are in this world have been here for a long time. So if they're going to get free shipping, it's because they're shipping and producing a lot of product at a cheap price. The American people and the American family farmers and ranchers are bringing a stronger economy here. They're creating jobs and opportunity. But unfortunately, the big corporations and processors of this world, under the USDA and under the Farm Bill, we have a paying structure. So we don't get to dictate our price of what goes to the processing plants or the meat packers. They tell us what we get paid. And unfortunately, like you said, we are not making a big buck. If anything, farmers and ranchers are truly struggling in this economy. And so I feel like the American people deserve to know, you know, farmers are not financially sustainable right now, but we are trying to fight to get a fair price, not only for them at the grocery store, but for us to have American-grown food.
To give credit where credit's due, on a couple different occasions, though he's kind of misstepped and got it wrong, Joe Biden has alluded to the meat processors and how they're undercutting the American farmer and rancher. He has mentioned that a couple of times, and I have to give him credit for that because I didn't hear Donald Trump talk about it a whole lot, something that I really tried to get in the forefront because that's something that's important to me as a family member of those in the ranching community. But let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about what these meat processors, how they're undercutting and how they're using foreign products to undercut our American suppliers who can't differentiate their product. That's a big learning curve for people who have no idea where their food's coming from.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the conservative side really was not prepared to back agriculture at that time. They were very unprepared of what was happening in farm and ranch communities. And there's still a lot going on in Washington, D.C. on the federal level that is not positive for family farmers or ranchers. But when you talk about regulations, when you really want to get into policy, there's a lot of things that the American people don't know. The big thing right now is private landowner rights. There's great talk of how we can better supply financial sustainability to family farmers and ranchers if they are a meat processor. But there's a lot of talk going on about the government coming in and taking up land. And that's a fear for me as a family farmer rancher. And on top of that, you have billions of dollars from Cargill to Tyson to Bill Gates that are being invested into this fake meat and not invested into the American agriculture economy. So that is very scary to see the power that they have over the influence of this agenda for climate change safe practices. But on the other hand, they are allowing our family farmers and ranchers to go out of business.
I think older generations still want to eat meat and they still want to drink milk. I worry about the young people, though. I worry because the climate change agenda is very seductive for young people. So I worry that they're going to be caught at a young age and they're going to be part of this. They're going to be pawns in this bigger movement. That's the fear I have, is for the future. It's not necessarily the right now, but it's 5, 10 years from now, what this industry is going to look like, and if we are going to have American farmers and ranchers left, if the demand isn't there. But do you think when we've seen these fake meats that crop up, they haven't done well? Beyond Meat hasn't done well. The consumers don't want it, kind of like consumers don't want electric vehicles. So do you think it's going to take more of a mandate from the government to make this flip to more of this Beyond Meat and this fake meat kind of society?
Yeah, so let me just start off by saying people that have not really looked into the fake meat, I'm going to tell you how they produce it. It is from cells, from an animal, from a needle biopsy grown in a medium, eventually turned into this gelatin to look like meat. That is not appealing at all. What they are doing, in a way, is they are pulling at emotions. They are pulling that we're not going to harvest these animals anymore, that we're going to save the planet from climate change. And that's more scary to me than them actually being honest about what the product is. Because they're working around this marketing strategy of, oh, here we are, we're going to be the best of America, and we're going to have the best products to be sustainable and feed the world. That's not it. In the first year, they're going to produce 400,000 pounds. Chicken alone is producing 43 million pounds a year. Beef is producing 27 billion pounds a year. They're not even close to what we as people need to eat on a daily basis, not only nutrition-wise, but what we need for the future of our food. And so I really am scared to know that they are using emotional tactics for the American consumer and the world to push this agenda of fake meat in our country.
Let's talk about the nutrition as well. There are some people that eat plant-based because they think it's better for them. And for some people, I don't know people's dietary needs or whatever, and for some people it might, maybe eating more plants might be better for them. I don't know, I'm not a doctor. But for those people who are eating the fake meat because they think that's better for them health-wise, what do you tell those people?
Well, the stock market, their numbers in the last 2 years have shown that people are being more aware of what they're putting in their bodies. Red 3 has come out, and I've said this before, they have banned that through the FDA for cosmetics, but they're putting it as a food coloring in this fake meat. And that's really scary to see how that's going to affect us in the next 10, 15 years. It might not affect your body right away, but later on in life it might. And so when people are not being aware of where their food is coming from, or they're getting statistics from the New York Times or people like Bill Gates, they're not being led correctly. They're being led astray to believe that this is a better product for their body and it's going to save them because they're living this vegetarian and vegan lifestyle. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like a steak on your dinner table. There's nothing like a cold glass of milk coming from a family farm. And that's what we need to spread the word about, is the truthful nutritional values of agriculture products.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think if people are armed with the correct information, I think that the consumer, time and time again, is going to choose, especially American farmers and ranchers who do it best. Where can my audience, and you've been on my show numerous times and I always appreciate it, it's one of my favorite segments by far, where can my audience find you to hear more about your advocacy, to get more educated on American farming and ranching?
Yeah, so they can go to Stephanie Nash, No Farms, No Food. I'm all over the internet, whether it's my website or on social media. And something that I would like to express to people going into 2024 is I am creating more content traveling to family farmers and ranchers, hopefully the Netherlands as well. So if they really do want to understand the family farmer, hear the stories, hear what products we're making, they can check me out, probably moving into the springtime.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for always coming and educating my audience. It's so important, so needed, and we don't talk about it enough in media. So I always appreciate you. Happy holidays. Have a fantastic time in Las Vegas for National Finals Rodeo, and I hope to see you real soon.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy.